Today, we're going to learn how to make simple bar charts with ember-cli-chart. While this library won't let you do anything spectacular or very custom, it will allow you to put up charts very quickly to take care of those 80% use cases. This ember.cli add-on is mostly a wrapper for the chart.js library, and it provides a convenient component that we can use. So let's get started with installing this. And it's that easy. There are no more steps. Now we can use the ember.chart component in our app. This is the chart that we're going to construct. As you can see, it shows the number of screencasts for each of these tags. So let's build this back up. Here we'll have our ember.chart component. And then we'll need to give it a type. So for making a bar chart, we'll give it the type bar. Then we'll need to give it data. Here we're going to call it number data. With that, then we can go to the controller and start defining our number data. But before we can define our number data, we need to know what format it needs it in. So let's click through the chart.js library, go to the documentation, and then go to the bar chart data structure. As you can see, it wants a list of labels. That's what's going to go at the bottom of the bar chart. And then it wants different data sets. We're only going to use one data set, and that requires a label. It can have different colors, and then the set of data, which corresponds on a one-to-one with the labels. So here, January 65, February is 59, March is 80, and so on. So in our controller, we're going to define number data as a computed property. And this computer property will be dependent upon the model, which happens to be the list of all the tags. This computed property will return a hash, and that hash will have a labels key and a datasets array. Both of these are arrays, but we're not going to create a list by hand. We're going to tap into the model, which is also an array, and then get the name of each tag. We're only going to define one data set. So we'll create one hash, which has one label, which is number of screencasts, and then it has a data set, which we'll define in much the same way that we define the labels right here. We'll get the model and we'll find the taggings and map them by length. What we're doing is for each tag, we're finding basically the number of posts on it. What you're doing in your app will be slightly different. So if we try to look at our table, we'll see that there are some problems. It seems to be displaying something, but it's not showing what we want. One way of fixing this is specifying the height. So if we specify the height as 500, then it gives us a pretty nice looking table. You can also specify the width of the graph. Here we'll give it a width of 600 and see how it looks now. It's a little better, but what happens when we do this? Not so great on mobile. Luckily, they have an option for us to make it responsive. To do that, we'll need an options hash. We'll define this in our controller and then use the option of responsive true. And when we use that, it spreads out across the page, and then it's responsive. Of course, this does bring up the problem that we had originally. And so this solution of having responsive true may not be the best. Trying to fix it by specifying the height again while having responsive equals true. Well, it looks good here, but then we do this and things start to fall apart. The solution I came up with was to specify the height and then use Twitter Bootstrap to help place it. Here we're using a different set of data. We'll see how it displays. and displays pretty well. The bars are not quite as thick as we would necessarily like. Let's see if we can fix that. We'll find our solution in the chart.js documentation. Here we have the chart options. We'll scroll down and eventually find bar value spacing. That sounds like what we want to increase the size of the bars. So we'll add that in, make it a 2 instead of a 5, and those look much better. So in this episode, we created a bar chart with ember-cli-chart. We went over the data structure, as well as some of the common options and some of the common pitfalls that you might run into. In this week's Pro episode, we'll be showing how to use a line graph and how to make a time series graph with ember-cli-chart. I'll see you then.